I never expected a train ride to Hialeah would change my life. But that's exactly what happened. As I settled into my seat, my fiery red hair tucked behind my ears, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. At 35, I was starting over, leaving behind a failed relationship and hoping to find something new in this unfamiliar city. The gentle sway of the train lulled me into a contemplative mood. I gazed out the window, watching the landscape blur by, much like the past few years of my life. As a nutrition scientist, I was used to analyzing things, breaking them down into their component parts. But my own life? That was a puzzle I couldn't seem to solve. Lost in thought, I barely noticed when someone slid into the seat next to me. A soft voice broke through my reverie. "Excuse me, would you like to share some lunch?" I turned, startled, and found myself looking into the most captivating green eyes I'd ever seen. They belonged to a stylish brunette, her hair falling in soft waves around her face. She held out a container filled with what looked like a gourmet meal. "I'm Vanessa," she said with a warm smile. "I always pack too much food for these trips. It would be a shame to let it go to waste." For a moment, I was speechless. There was something about her that made my heart skip a beat. "I'm Gwendolyn," I finally managed, "and I'd love to share lunch with you." As we ate, conversation flowed easily between us. Vanessa, I learned, was a badge maker heading home to Hialeah after a business trip. Her passion for her craft was evident in the way her eyes lit up when she talked about it. "What brings you to Hialeah?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I'm starting over, I guess. Needed a change of scenery." Vanessa nodded, understanding in her eyes. Sometimes, a fresh start is exactly what we need. As the train journey continued, I found myself increasingly drawn to Vanessa. There was an ease to our interaction that I hadn't experienced in years. We laughed, we shared stories, and before I knew it, hours had passed. As we approached Hialeah, a crazy thought entered my mind. What if I didn't stick to my original plan? What if I took a chance and explored this new city with Vanessa? "Hey," I said, my heart pounding. "I don't really have any concrete plans in Hialeah. Would you maybe want to show me around?" Vanessa's face lit up with a smile that made my breath catch. "I'd love to," she replied, her fingers brushing against mine as she reached for her bag. That simple touch sent a jolt through me, awakening feelings I thought I'd long buried. As we stepped off the train together, the humid Hialeah air enveloping us, I knew I was embarking on more than just a city tour. Vanessa led me through the bustling streets, her hand occasionally touching my arm to guide me. Each contact sent shivers down my spine. We explored hidden gems that only a local would know, a tucked-away cafe with the best Cuban coffee I'd ever tasted, a vibrant mural celebrating the city's diversity, a serene park, where the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. As twilight descended, we found ourselves strolling along a quiet street lined with charming houses. Our hands brushed against each other, and this time, neither of us pulled away. The air between us felt charged, full of unspoken possibilities. "Gwendolyn," Vanessa said, stopping and turning to face me. Her eyes sparkled in the fading light. "I know this might sound crazy, but I feel like there's something special happening here. Would you like to stay at my place tonight? I promise to show you the real Hialeah tomorrow." My heart raced. This was so unlike me, impulsive, daring. But looking into Vanessa's eyes, I knew my answer. "Yes," I breathed, "I'd love to." As we walked towards her home, hands now intertwined, I marveled at how a simple train ride had led to this moment. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself and love. Vanessa's apartment was a cozy haven, filled with eclectic art pieces and the subtle scent of lavender. As I stepped inside, I felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. This woman, who was little more than a stranger mere hours ago, was now inviting me into her most intimate space. "Make yourself at home," Vanessa said, her smile warming me from the inside out. "I'll make us some tea." As she bustled about in the kitchen, I took in my surroundings. Colorful badges of all shapes and sizes adorned one wall, clearly a showcase of her craft. I ran my fingers over them, marveling at the intricate designs. "Those are some of my favorites." Vanessa's voice came from behind me, making me jump slightly. She handed me a steaming mug of chamomile tea, our fingers brushing in the exchange. That familiar jolt of electricity coursed through me again. We settled on her plush sofa, talking late into the night. Vanessa regaled me with stories of Hialeah, her eyes sparkling with love for her city. I found myself captivated not just by her words, but by the passion with which she spoke. As the night wore on, our bodies unconsciously shifted closer. I could feel the warmth radiating from her, smell the faint trace of her perfume. It was intoxicating. "So, Gwendolyn," Vanessa said, her voice softer now, "tell me more about this fresh start you're looking for." I took a deep breath, feeling surprisingly comfortable opening up to her. I was in a relationship for years. It was safe, comfortable, but something was missing. I felt like I was living someone else's life, you know? Vanessa nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. "And now?" "Now, I'm not sure. But for the first time in a long time, I feel alive." The words hung between us, charged with unspoken meaning. Vanessa reached out, tucking a stray strand of my red hair behind my ear. Her touch lingered, sending shivers down my spine. "It's late," she whispered. "We should get some sleep if we're going to explore Hialeah tomorrow." I nodded, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. As I settled into the guest room, my mind raced with thoughts of Vanessa. What was this connection I felt? Was it just the excitement of a new friendship, or something more? Morning came with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Vanessa was already up, her hair slightly tousled, looking adorably domestic in her pajamas. My heart did a little flip at the sight. "Ready for your grand tour?" she asked, handing me a mug. And what a tour it was! Vanessa showed me a side of Hialeah I never would have discovered on my own. We wandered through vibrant street markets, sampling exotic fruits and chatting with friendly locals. She took me to a hidden art gallery showcasing up-and-coming local artists, their raw talent evident in every piece. For lunch we found ourselves in a tiny Cuban restaurant, the kind of place tourists never find. The owner, an elderly woman with a warm smile, greeted Vanessa like family. "Vanessa, mi amor, who is your beautiful friend?" she asked in heavily accented English. I felt a blush creep up my cheeks as Vanessa introduced me. The knowing look the woman gave us made me wonder if she saw something between us that I was only beginning to acknowledge. As the day wore on, I found myself falling not just for Hialeah, but for Vanessa too. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, how she listened intently when I spoke. The casual touches that sent sparks through my body, it all added up to something I couldn't ignore. We ended up at a small park as the sun began to set. The sky was ablaze with colors, painting everything in a warm, golden light. We sat on a bench, our shoulders touching, watching the day fade away. "Thank you for today," I said quietly. "You've shown me so much more than just the city." Vanessa turned to me, her green eyes intense. "Gwendolyn, She trailed off, her gaze dropping to my lips. The air between us crackled with tension. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, we leaned towards each other. Our hands brushed, fingers intertwining. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. Just as our lips were about to meet, a group of laughing children ran past, breaking the spell. We pulled apart, both a little breathless. "We should head back," Vanessa said, her voice husky. The walk back to her apartment was filled with a charged silence. Our hands kept brushing against each other, each touch sending jolts of electricity through me. By the time we reached her door, the tension was palpable. As Vanessa fumbled with her keys, I made a decision. I was tired of playing it safe, of denying my feelings. Just as she got the door open, I gently turned her towards me. "Vanessa," I whispered, my hand cupping her cheek, "I don't want this night to end." Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and desire swirling in their depths. For a moment, we stood frozen, teetering on the edge of something profound. Then, with a soft gasp, Vanessa closed the distance between us. Our lips met in a kiss that was both tender and passionate, years of suppressed emotions pouring out. As we stumbled into her apartment, hands exploring, hearts racing, I knew that my life would never be the same again. This was more than just a new beginning. It was an awakening. And as Vanessa's lips trailed down my neck, her hands tangling in my hair, I surrendered myself to the journey, wherever it might lead. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over Vanessa's sleeping form. I lay there, taking in every detail of her face, still hardly believing the events of the past few days. My fingers itched to trace the curve of her cheek, but I didn't want to wake her. Not yet. My mind wandered back to the night before, to our passionate encounter. It had been unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Vanessa's touch had been both gentle and confident, her kisses igniting a fire within me that I never knew existed. We had explored each other with a mix of curiosity and urgency, our bodies speaking a language our words couldn't express. As I watched her sleep, a wave of emotion washed over me. This was more than just physical attraction. In the short time we'd known each other, Vanessa had awakened something in me that I thought was long dormant, a sense of possibility, of adventure, of true connection. Vanessa stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw me, a slow smile spread across her face. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice husky with sleep. "Morning," I replied, suddenly shy. How does one act the morning after such a life-changing night? But Vanessa, sensing my hesitation, simply pulled me closer. "No regrets?" she asked softly, her eyes searching mine. I shook my head, feeling a smile tug at my lips. No regrets. We spent the morning in a blissful haze, alternating between tender kisses and quiet conversation. It felt surreal, like we were in our own little bubble, separate from the rest of the world. As we finally dragged ourselves out of bed and into the kitchen for some much-needed coffee, reality began to seep in. I was supposed to be starting a new job in Hialeah next week, but I hadn't even begun to look for a place to live. "You know," Vanessa said, as if reading my thoughts, "you could stay here while you look for a place. If you want to, that is." The offer hung between us, loaded with implications. Was this moving too fast? But then again, nothing about our relationship had been conventional so far. "Are you sure?" I asked, both thrilled and terrified by the prospect. Vanessa reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "Gwendolyn, I know this is all happening so quickly. But I've never felt this way about anyone before. I don't want to let you go." Her words echoed my own feelings, and I felt a weight lift off my chest. "I'd love to stay," I said, squeezing her hand. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of passion and domesticity. We fell into an easy rhythm, cooking meals together, sharing stories of our past, and exploring the physical side of our relationship with an enthusiasm that left us both breathless. But it wasn't all roses and romance. As the initial euphoria began to fade, small tensions started to emerge. Vanessa was a night owl, often staying up late to work on her badge designs, while I preferred early mornings. We had different ideas about tidiness, and our tastes in music couldn't have been more different. One evening, about a week into my stay, we had our first real argument. It started over something trivial. I had reorganized her kitchen drawers without asking, but quickly escalated into a heated discussion about boundaries and respect. "You can't just come in here and change everything," Vanessa exclaimed, her green eyes flashing with anger. "I was just trying to help," I retorted, feeling defensive. "This is my space too now, isn't it?" As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. We both fell silent, the weight of what I'd said hanging heavy between us. Finally, Vanessa spoke, her voice quiet. "Is it your space, I mean? Is that what you want?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to really consider the question. Despite the whirlwind nature of our relationship, despite the arguments and the differences, I knew in my heart what I wanted. "Yes," I said softly. "If you'll have me." The tension drained from Vanessa's face, replaced by a look of such tenderness that it made my heart ache. She crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling me into a fierce embrace. "Of course I'll have you," she whispered into my hair. "I think I've been waiting for you my whole life." We made love that night with a new intensity, our recent conflict adding a layer of passion and reconciliation to our encounter. As we lay tangled in the sheets afterward, I marveled at how quickly this woman had become the center of my world. But even as I basked in the afterglow, a nagging doubt crept into my mind. Was this all happening too fast? Were we setting ourselves up for heartbreak? As if sensing my thoughts, Vanessa propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me with serious eyes. "Gwendolyn," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I know this is all happening so quickly, but I want you to know that I'm all in. Whatever challenges come our way, we'll face them together. Okay?" I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Okay," I whispered. Vanessa sealed her promise with a kiss, and as I melted into her embrace I allowed myself to hope. Hope that this unexpected whirlwind romance might just be the real thing. Hope that in Vanessa, I had found not just a lover but a partner, a confidant, a home. As we drifted off to sleep, limbs intertwined, I couldn't help but feel that despite the challenges that lay ahead, we were on the brink of something beautiful. Something that, with nurturing and care, could last a lifetime. Little did I know, our newfound happiness was about to be put to the test in ways we couldn't have imagined. The weeks flew by in a haze of newfound domesticity and passion. Vanessa and I settled into a routine, our lives intertwining in ways both big and small. I started my new job as a nutrition scientist at a local research facility, while Vanessa continued her work as a badge maker from her home studio. Our evenings were filled with shared meals, long conversations, and tender moments that never failed to make my heart race. But as the initial euphoria of our whirlwind romance began to settle, reality started to creep in. I found myself grappling with questions I had pushed aside in the heat of our passion. Who was I now? What did this relationship mean for my identity, my future? One morning, as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, I hardly recognized the woman staring back at me. My red hair was tousled from a night of lovemaking, my neck adorned with faint marks from Vanessa's kisses. I looked different, happier, yes, but also somehow foreign to myself. "You okay in there?" Vanessa's voice called from the bedroom, laced with concern. I splashed some water on my face, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. "Yeah, I'll be out in a minute," I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. As I joined Vanessa for breakfast, I couldn't shake the nagging doubts. She must have sensed my unease because she reached across the table, her fingers intertwining with mine. "What's going on in that brilliant mind of yours?" she asked softly. I hesitated, not wanting to burst the bubble of happiness we'd been living in. But Vanessa's green eyes were full of understanding, and I found myself opening up. "I'm just struggling a bit," I admitted. "Everything's happened so fast, and it's all so wonderful, but I'm also scared. I've never been with a woman before you, Vanessa. What does that mean for who I am, for my future?" Vanessa listened patiently, her thumb tracing soothing circles on my hand. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. "Gwendolyn," she began, her voice gentle but firm. "Labels and identities are complex things. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. What matters is how you feel, and what feels right to you." Her words were comforting, but they didn't completely quell the storm of emotions inside me. I nodded, grateful for her understanding but still feeling adrift. The next few days were a roller coaster of emotions. I threw myself into my work, hoping that the familiar world of nutrition science would provide some stability. But even as I pored over data and conducted experiments, my mind kept wandering back to Vanessa, to us, to the life we were building together. One evening, I came home to find Vanessa pacing nervously in the living room. My heart immediately jumped to my throat. Had she sensed my inner turmoil? Was she having second thoughts about us? "Vanessa?" "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned to me, her face a mix of anxiety and something else I couldn't quite place. Gwendolyn, I need to tell you something. My mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. I steeled myself for the worst as Vanessa took a deep breath. I went to the doctor today, she began, her voice shaky. I've been having some pain and they found something. I need surgery, Gwen. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Surgery? My mind immediately went to the worst-case scenarios, years of scientific training kicking in with a vengeance. What kind of surgery? I managed to ask, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Vanessa explained that it was a non-life-threatening condition, but one that required immediate attention. The surgery was scheduled for next week. As she spoke, I felt a curious mix of relief. It wasn't about us and terror. Vanessa was facing a medical procedure. But underneath it all, there was something else, a fierce protectiveness, a desire to shield her from any harm. I pulled her into my arms, holding her close as she finally let her brave facade crumble. As I stroked her hair and murmured words of comfort, I realized that my own identity crisis seemed trivial in comparison to what Vanessa was facing. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments and preparations. I took time off work to accompany Vanessa to her pre-op consultations, my scientific background proving useful as I asked detailed questions about the procedure and recovery process. But as the surgery date loomed closer, I noticed Vanessa pulling away emotionally. She spent more time alone in her studio, her usual vibrant energy dimmed. When I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed off my concerns with a forced smile. One night, unable to sleep, I found her sitting in the darkened living room, staring out the window. "Vanessa?" I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned to me, and in the dim light from the street, I could see tears glistening on her cheeks. Without a word, I sat beside her and pulled her into my arms. "Talk to me," I whispered. "I'm scared, Gwen," she admitted, her voice small. "Not just about the surgery, but about us. What if this changes things? What if you decide it's too much?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. All my own doubts and fears suddenly seemed insignificant in the face of Vanessa's vulnerability. "Listen to me," I said, cupping her face in my hands. "I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together, remember? Whatever happens, we face it as a team." As I spoke the words, I realized the truth of them. My journey of self-discovery, my questions about identity, they were all part of the path that had led me to this moment, to Vanessa. And I knew, with a certainty that surprised me, that I wanted to walk this path with her, wherever it might lead. Vanessa's eyes searched mine, and whatever she saw there seemed to reassure her. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine. "I love you, Gwendolyn," she whispered, the words hanging between us like a promise. My heart swelled, and I realized I'd been waiting to hear those words, to say them back. "I love you too, Vanessa. We'll get through this together." As we held each other in the quiet of the night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead might be challenging, but I was exactly where I needed to be. With Vanessa, I was home. The morning of Vanessa's surgery dawned with a gray, overcast sky that seemed to mirror our apprehension. As we drove to the hospital, I kept stealing glances at her, taking in her profile, the way her hands fidgeted in her lap. She looked small and vulnerable in the passenger seat, a far cry from the vibrant woman I'd met on the train all those weeks ago. "It's going to be okay," I said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "I'll be right there when you wake up." Vanessa gave me a wan smile, her green eyes clouded with worry. "Promise?" "Promise," I replied, bringing her hand to my lips for a soft kiss. The hospital was a maze of sterile corridors and bustling activity. As we followed a nurse to the pre-op area, I felt my scientific mind kick into overdrive, cataloging every detail of our surroundings. It was easier to focus on the clinical aspects than to dwell on the fear gnawing at my insides. When it was time for Vanessa to change into her hospital gown, I helped her, my hands lingering on her skin. We both knew this wasn't the time or place for anything more, but I couldn't help but marvel at the intimacy of the moment. How quickly this woman had become my whole world. "Gwendolyn," Vanessa said softly as we waited for the orderlies to come and take her to surgery. If anything happens. I cut her off with a gentle kiss. Don't, everything's going to be fine, and when you're recovered, we'll take that trip to the beach you've been talking about. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I wiped it away with my thumb, trying to memorize every detail of her face. When they came to take her away, I felt a surge of panic. I wanted to go with her, to protect her, but I knew I couldn't. Instead, I kissed her one last time and whispered, "I love you. I'll be right here waiting." The hours that followed were some of the longest of my life. I paced the waiting room, alternating between attempting to read outdated magazines and staring blankly at the muted TV in the corner. My mind kept conjuring worst-case scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. To distract myself, I began to reflect on the whirlwind journey that had brought me here. Just a few months ago, I was a woman running from a failed relationship, unsure of her place in the world. Now here I was, desperately in love with another woman, my whole being focused on her well-being. I thought about our first kiss, the electricity that had sparked between us. I remembered the way Vanessa's eyes crinkled when she laughed, the feel of her body against mine in the quiet hours of the night. Each memory was a lifeline, keeping me tethered as I waited for news. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a doctor emerged. "Miss Thompson?" he called, and I practically leapt to my feet. "That's me," I said, my heart pounding. "How is she? Is Vanessa okay?" The doctor smiled, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The surgery went well. We were able to remove the entire growth, and Miss Reyes is in recovery now. You can see her soon. I sagged against the wall, tears of relief streaming down my face. She was okay. Vanessa was okay. When I was finally allowed to see her, I had to steel myself. Vanessa looked pale and small in the hospital bed, tubes and monitors surrounding her. But when her eyes fluttered open and focused on me, I saw the woman I loved shining through. "Hey, beautiful," I whispered, taking her hand gently. "Did you mean it?" Vanessa asked, her voice hoarse. "About the beach?" I laughed softly, tears pricking at my eyes. "Of course I did. As soon as you're up for it, we'll go." Over the next few days, I barely left Vanessa's side. I slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair, helped her with her physical therapy exercises, and tried to make her laugh with increasingly terrible jokes. Slowly but surely, I saw her strength returning, her spirit rekindling. On the day she was discharged, I helped her into our apartment, now truly ours in every sense. As I settled her on the couch, surrounded by pillows and blankets, I was struck by how right it felt to be taking care of her. "Thank you," Vanessa said softly, reaching for my hand, "for everything." I sat beside her, careful not to jostle her still healing body. "You don't need to thank me. This is what partners do." "Partners," she repeated, a slow smile spreading across her face. I liked the sound of that. As the days passed and Vanessa grew stronger, our relationship deepened. The enforced quiet time gave us a chance to talk, really talk, about our hopes and fears, our pasts, and our future. We shared stories we'd never told anyone else, baring our souls in the soft light of dawn and the quiet hours of the night. One evening, about 2 weeks after the surgery, we were cuddled on the couch, Vanessa's head resting on my shoulder. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching it. "Gwen," Vanessa said suddenly, her voice thoughtful, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met on that train?" I considered her question, my fingers absently playing with her hair. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But then I think about how unlikely it was for us to meet in the first place. It feels like, I don't know, like it was meant to be." Vanessa shifted, looking up at me with those mesmerizing green eyes. "Do you believe in fate?" "I didn't used to," I replied honestly. "But being with you, it's made me reconsider a lot of things I thought I knew." She smiled, leaning in to kiss me softly. As our lips met, I felt that familiar spark, the one that had been there from our very first kiss. But now it was accompanied by something deeper, a sense of belonging and rightness that took my breath away. As we broke apart, Vanessa winced slightly, her hand going to her side where the surgical scar was still healing. Are you okay? I asked, immediately concerned. Do you need your pain medication? She shook her head, a mischievous glint in her eye. What I need, she said, her voice low and husky, is for you to kiss me again, carefully. I couldn't help but chuckle. Are you sure? The doctor said to listen to my body. Vanessa interrupted. And right now my body is telling me it wants you. Looking into her eyes, seeing the desire there mixed with love and trust, I felt my own body responding. Gently, oh so gently, I leaned in to kiss her again, my hands ghosting over her skin with the lightest of touches. We made love that night with exquisite tenderness, mindful of Vanessa's healing body, but unable to deny the passion between us. It was different from our previous encounters, slower, more deliberate, each touch infused with a newfound depth of emotion. Afterward, as we lay tangled together in the soft sheets, I marveled at how far we'd come, from strangers on a train to this, partners in every sense of the word, facing life's challenges together. I love you, I whispered into the darkness, my lips brushing against Vanessa's temple. I love you too, she murmured back, her voice heavy with sleep. Always. As I drifted off, Vanessa safe in my arms, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Whatever the future held, we would face it together.
And that, I realized, was all that really mattered. The Florida sun beat down on us as Vanessa and I strolled hand in hand along the beach. It had been 3 months since her surgery, and true to my word, I'd brought her here to recuperate. The sound of waves lapping at the shore and the feel of warm sand between my toes was a balm to my soul after the stress of the past few months. Vanessa looked radiant, her skin glowing with health, her green eyes sparkling with joy. She'd regained her strength, and with it, her zest for life. Watching her twirl in the surf, her laughter carried on the sea breeze, I felt my heart swell with love. "Come on, Slowpoke," she called, tugging at my hand. "The water's perfect." I laughed, allowing her to pull me into the warm shallows. As we splashed and played like children, I marveled at how far we'd come. The woman who'd been so fragile in that hospital bed was now vibrant and full of life, and I felt blessed to be by her side. Later, as we lay on our beach towels, the sun drying the salt water on our skin, Vanessa propped herself up on one elbow, looking at me intently. "What's going on in that beautiful mind of yours?" she asked, echoing the question I'd asked her so many times before. I smiled, reaching out to brush a strand of damp hair from her face. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am. How grateful I am for you, for us." Vanessa's eyes softened, and she leaned in to kiss me softly. "I'm the lucky one," she murmured against my lips. That evening, as we watched the sunset from our beachfront rental, Vanessa's phone chirped with a notification. She glanced at it, then suddenly went pale. "Vanessa, what is it?" I asked, immediately concerned. She handed me the phone wordlessly. It was a social media update from my ex-partner, announcing their arrival in Hialeah for a business conference. I felt my stomach drop. In the whirlwind of my new life with Vanessa, I'd all but forgotten about my past. Now it seemed my old life was threatening to collide with my new one. "Are you okay?" Vanessa asked softly, her hand finding mine. I took a deep breath, trying to sort through the jumble of emotions coursing through me. I don't know," I admitted. "I never expected them to show up here." Vanessa was quiet for a moment, her thumb tracing soothing circles on my hand. "Do you want to see them?" she asked finally, her voice carefully neutral. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. Did I want to see my ex? The person I'd left behind when I'd boarded that fateful train to Hialeah? The life I'd walked away from? "I don't know," I said again, hating how uncertain I sounded. "Part of me thinks I should. For closure, maybe? But another part is afraid," Vanessa finished for me, her voice gentle. I nodded, grateful for her understanding. What if seeing them makes me question everything? What if... Vanessa silenced me with a kiss, soft but firm. When she pulled back, her green eyes were fierce with determination. "Listen to me, Gwendolyn. Whatever you decide, I'm here." If you want to see them, I'll support you. If you don't, that's okay too. But don't for a second think that anyone or anything could make me question what we have." Her words washed over me like a warm wave, soothing my fears. I pulled her close, burying my face in her neck and breathing in her familiar scent. "What did I do to deserve you?" I murmured. The next morning, after a night of restless sleep and deep conversation, I made my decision. I would meet with my ex, but not alone. Vanessa would come with me. We arranged to meet at a cafe in Hialeah, neutral ground. As we approached, I felt my heart racing. Vanessa squeezed my hand reassuringly, and I drew strength from her presence. My ex was already there, sitting at an outdoor table. They looked the same yet different, familiar yet strange. As our eyes met, I felt a complex mix of emotions, nostalgia, regret, but most surprisingly a sense of distance. This person, who had once been my whole world, now felt like a character from a half-forgotten story. "Hello, Gwendolyn," they said, standing as we approached. Their eyes flickered to Vanessa, a question in their gaze. "Hi," I replied, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "This is Vanessa, my partner." I saw the surprise flash across my ex's face, quickly masked by a polite smile. "It's nice to meet you, Vanessa." As we sat down, an awkward silence fell over the table. I found myself studying my ex, trying to reconcile the person before me with the memories in my mind. They seemed smaller somehow, less significant than I remembered. "So," my ex began, breaking the silence, "you're living in Hialeah now?" I nodded, feeling Vanessa's reassuring presence beside me. "Yes, I found something here I didn't even know I was looking for." As we talked, the initial awkwardness slowly melted away. We spoke of mutual friends, of changes in our old hometown. But as the conversation progressed, I felt an increasing sense of disconnect. The life my ex was describing, the world they still inhabited, felt alien to me now. Finally, my ex leaned forward, their voice low. "Are you happy, Gwen? Really happy?" I felt Vanessa tense beside me, but before she could speak, I found my voice. "Yes," I said with a certainty that surprised even me. "Happier than I've ever been." The look that passed between my ex and me in that moment was one of understanding, of closure. They nodded, a small, sad smile on their face. "I'm glad," they said softly. As we said our goodbyes, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This meeting, which I dreaded so much, had only served to confirm what I already knew in my heart. My past was behind me, and my future was standing right beside me, her hand warm in mine. Later that night, as Vanessa and I lay tangled together in bed, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Vanessa asked, her voice sleepy. "For being there today, for understanding, for everything." Vanessa propped herself up, looking down at me with those mesmerizing green eyes. "Gwendolyn," she said softly, "you never have to thank me for loving you. It's the easiest, most natural thing in the world." As our lips met in a tender kiss, I felt the last lingering doubts melt away. This was where I belonged. This was home. And as Vanessa's hands began to wander, igniting that familiar fire within me, I surrendered myself completely to the love we shared. In the afterglow, as we lay catching our breath, I realized something profound. The journey that had brought me here, the chance meeting on the train, the whirlwind romance, the challenges we'd faced, had all led to this moment. And I wouldn't change a single step of that journey. With Vanessa by my side, I was ready to face whatever the future might hold. Our love story was far from over. In many ways, it felt like it was just beginning. The gentle clatter of the train and the passing landscape outside the window brought a sense of déjà vu. Vanessa's hand was warm in mine as we sat side by side, our fingers intertwined. It had been exactly 1 year since that fateful train ride that changed my life forever. "Penny for your thoughts?" Vanessa's voice broke through my reverie, her green eyes twinkling with curiosity. I smiled, lifting our joined hands to place a soft kiss on her knuckles. Just thinking about how much has changed in a year. How much I've changed. Vanessa's smile was radiant. You have changed. You've blossomed, Gwen. It's been beautiful to watch. As the train rolled on, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. The whirlwind romance, the challenges we'd faced, the growth we'd experienced together. Each memory was a thread in the tapestry of our relationship, woven together to create something beautiful and strong. We were heading back to Hialeah after a week-long trip to my hometown. It had been Vanessa's idea, a chance for me to reconnect with my roots and for her to see where I came from. The visit had been eye-opening in ways I hadn't expected. You know, I said, turning to face Vanessa fully, going back home made me realize something. Oh? She prompted, her eyebrow arched in that adorable way that always made my heart skip a beat.
It made me realize that home isn't a place anymore. It's wherever you are. Vanessa's eyes softened, and she leaned in to kiss me softly. I feel the same way, she murmured against my lips. As we pulled into Hialeah Station, I felt a surge of excitement. This city, which had once been strange and daunting, now felt like a welcoming embrace. We'd built a life here together, forging connections and creating a community that felt like family. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. We hosted a small gathering to celebrate our one-year anniversary, inviting the friends we'd made over the past year. As I watched Vanessa laugh with our neighbors, her eyes sparkling as she regaled them with the story of how we met, I felt a profound sense of contentment wash over me. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Vanessa propped herself up on one elbow, her expression serious. Gwen, there's something I want to talk to you about. My heart rate picked up, a mix of excitement and nervousness coursing through me. What is it? Vanessa took a deep breath. I've been thinking. What would you say to starting a family together? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility. A year ago, the idea would have terrified me. But now, looking into Vanessa's eyes, seeing the love and hope shining there, I felt a sense of rightness settle over me. I think, I said slowly, a smile spreading across my face, that I'd love nothing more than to start a family with you. The joy that lit up Vanessa's face was breathtaking. She pulled me into a passionate kiss, and as we made love that night, there was a new tenderness to our touches, a sense of creating something beautiful together. The next few months were a flurry of research, doctor's appointments, and planning. We decided to try for a baby through IVF, with Vanessa carrying our child. The process was not without its challenges. The hormone treatments were tough on Vanessa and the waiting was agonizing for both of us. But through it all, our love only grew stronger. On a sunny morning in spring, we sat in the doctor's office, hands clasped tightly as we waited for the results of the pregnancy test. When the doctor walked in with a broad smile, we knew before she even spoke. Congratulations, she said warmly. You're pregnant? The room spun around me as joy unlike anything I'd ever experienced welled up inside me. I turned to Vanessa, tears streaming down both our faces, and pulled her into a gentle embrace. We're going to be moms, Vanessa whispered, her voice filled with wonder. As the months passed and Vanessa's belly grew, I found myself falling even more deeply in love with her. Watching her body change, feeling our baby kick for the first time, it was a miracle I never thought I'd experience. We transformed the spare room into a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and filling it with books and toys. Each night I would read to Vanessa's belly, telling our child stories of how their moms met and fell in love. On a crisp autumn evening, almost 2 years to the day since I first stepped foot in Hialeah, our daughter came into the world. As I held her in my arms, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger, I looked at Vanessa, exhausted but radiant, and felt my heart might burst with love. Welcome to the world, Lily, I whispered to our daughter, named after the flower that had been in bloom when we first met. In the quiet of the hospital room, with Vanessa dozing and Lily sleeping peacefully in my arms, I reflected on the incredible journey that had brought me here. From a woman unsure of her place in the world to a wife and mother, deeply in love, and more certain of herself than ever before. As if sensing my thoughts, Vanessa stirred, her eyes finding mine. "Are you happy, my love?" she asked softly. I looked at her, then down at our daughter, then back to Vanessa. "More than I ever thought possible," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. Vanessa smiled, reaching out to caress my cheek. "Me too," she whispered. As we gazed at each other over the sleeping form of our daughter, I knew with absolute certainty that this was where I was meant to be. The journey hadn't always been easy, but every step had led me here, to this moment, to this love, to this family. And as Lily stirred in my arms, her tiny face scrunching up before relaxing again, I made a silent promise. To love fiercely, to live authentically, and to always remember the power of a chance encounter on a train to change a life forever. This wasn't an ending, I realized. It was a beautiful new beginning.